So we all know Halloween's right around the corner, and that means tons of Halloween one-shots, Halloween different kinds of adventures, and things like that for all of your favorite role-playing games. So coming up on this DM's Guild review, I have The Dread House, which is which is a 290-page document containing all sorts of things from standalone adventures to multi-year campaigns. If you're curious what I'm talking about, stay tuned. All right, folks, so I know I said DM's Guild here, but it is on Drive-Thru RPG, and the reason why I'll get into in a little bit. First of all, this is a $20 PDF, but as I stated in the intro, it is 290 pages. So you're getting a lot of material for the price. It's currently 5 stars with 3 ratings. It's a lot. I will also say up front, this was provided to me for review purposes, but that is not going to affect my review. So you'll have to see what I have to say. So first of all, this adventure, and this is something that I think is a boon, but also a detriment, is this adventure, as you can kind of see here right from the front cover, if I pull it up, is written for Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, and 5th edition. And part of the reason why I say that's a boon and a detriment is, one, you get triple the bang for your buck with one adventure. So if you play a combination of any of those, I would say typically you're more likely playing either 5th edition or Pathfinder, probably not both, but you might be. And you may also be dabbling in Call of Cthulhu as well. I don't know what everyone's makeup is and what adventures they play, but this is one document that's going to give you adventures for all of them. And they're not always even the same adventures, right? The Call of Cthulhu 1920 style adventures are written separately from the 5th edition fantasy adventures, though there is little bits where you could kind of port them back and forth. So if we look here, you can see all this kind of stuff, right? Here's a trailer for it from Hammerdog Games, and you can see what you're going to get here. 288 pages of haunted house goodness, content for Pathfinder 5th edition, Call of Cthulhu 7th edition, 2 campaigns, 19 adventures, notes, ghost stories by Kevin Andrew Murphy and Richard Lee Byers. They enhance the mood, background, and flavor of the 2 primary campaigns. Adventures for low and mid-level characters and investigators of any experience level. 4 versions of the haunted house, the castle version, a mansion version, the manor house, shack, and one-shot adventures. A robust appendix with dread ghost information, optional rules for fear, sanity, soul points, different power levels, monsters, magic items, etc. So, let us open this back up. So, again, it's a lot. It's 290 pages, and this is about what you're going to see on an average page as far as text goes. You will see pictures and things as well. But I'm going to say because of that, it can get a little confusing at times as to what you're looking for. Also, that's going to pad out the page number here of 290 or 288 pages, not including the front and back cover. You're going to have sections that are going to provide you information for Pathfinder, sections that are going to provide you information for 5th edition, sections that are going to provide you information for Call of Cthulhu. So it's not 288 pages for one specific adventure. It's kind of a mixture of both. I will also say that because of that, I feel like there are certain things, at least from what I saw reading through the 5th edition stuff, especially, which I should, I guess, also say is what we're going to focus on when we read through this. I definitely saw a few things in a couple spots that are what I would consider to be relics of the fact that it hits so many different editions, like referencing spells that don't exist in 5th edition, for example. So here you can see, and I'm going to go very, very high level because there's a ton to cover, and I don't want to go over all of it, and I obviously couldn't because we'd be here forever. So the main storyline is the Dread Wedding, but there is a bunch of really cool other stuff, and one concept that I really like the idea of, and we'll talk about that. So you have the Dread Wedding. This is the main campaign. Looks like it's for levels 6 to 8 to give you an idea for what you'd be doing if you're playing it in 5th edition. And then there's this section, that's storyline 1, which you could play as a one-shot. You could play it theoretically as part of a campaign. You could fit it into your existing campaign. This may be a longer one-shot to play the entirety of that whole kind of storyline. And then there's this idea storyline 2, which the Scions of Solaria is more or less what you would consider to be a campaign. And what I think is really cool is the fact that it is literally, the town kind of has this whole Solaria as sort of a sun god, and that's sort of a vibe. But the Scions of Solaria is you start off as like 10-year-old kids in the town, and you are like adventurous, what I would call like a kind of an 80s movie style vibe to me, or like Stranger Things, if that's more, up to date for what you guys know. You're a bunch of kids who live in the town and know about all these spooky things that are happening, and you may start going on like, you guys are gonna go dare each other to go into this haunted house. And then like this Scions of Solaria campaign takes place over multiple years as you guys grow older, and then eventually you'll get to roll into the Dread Wedding storyline, which is the kind of the main storyline. So you kind of build this all up, you get to know people in the town, and it doesn't necessarily have to take real years in real life. It could be over the course of a campaign, but like this happens when you're 10, then when you're 11, and so on all the way through. There are also several standalone adventures. So you can see here's the Dread Wedding, right? This is the Scions of Solaria storyline. These, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 adventures. And then there are the standalone adventures you can see here, which are the Fall of the House of Tashmere and the Sinister Secret of Peppermarsh. These are 2 standalone adventures. So that is that. Then that's kind of your fantasy one for Pathfinder and 5th edition. Here is your Time of Mythos and Machine Guns. So this whole section is all for Call of Cthulhu, right? And then there's the Time of Connected Dependence, the Dread House Today and Tomorrow. And these are kind of more modern, specifically for Call of Cthulhu, options for D&D and Pathfinder. And this is basically a haunted house that goes from scary to, or from spooky to scary, or an escape room thing. And then there are several appendices with a bunch of different rule sets and some new monsters and some stuff that I think we need to talk about, because I think it may be a little, a little much. So here's the foreword. I don't know if it's supposed to be like hidden or something fun, or if they just forgot to put it in here. I don't know. So we have an introduction by the author. Then here is the Dread House. So this is also something else, right? The Dread House is like the main focus, right? It's a haunted house adventure. That's the name of the book. This is what you're going to go into. This is where the majority of your campaign, aside from if you're doing the Scions of Solaria thing and a couple of the standalones, this is the main focus of this. I feel like I played through Curse of Strahd, so I did the Dead House or whatever it was for Curse of Strahd. So I feel like I'm a little less not less intrigued, but like I played through a haunted house style adventure in Curse of Strahd, so I've done that. So, but if you haven't, this may be right up your alley. Again, Dread Wedding. There is also a lot of stuff here in the beginning that I thought was really interesting. Some of it seems on the surface a little silly, but would be fun. So this whole section here is all about ghosts, and I thought that this was pretty interesting because it talks a lot about ghosts, ghost stories, and the effect that they have, right? Ghost stories are scary, but they're also fun. In a ghost story, a ghost can basically do anything they want to do. That's how the stories work, and it kind of gives you, like, you need to kind of embrace that when you're running this game. Stuff about haunted houses, how to use the book, different terminology, but again, you have to have terminology to split out the difference. And this part, again, kind of gets confusing. Stuff written in gold is for Pathfinder, red is for 5th edition, Call of Cthulhu is purple. And then, assuming the default system is Pathfinder, the DM uses the text in black. The DM uses the text in red, and the keeper uses the text in purple. But you can see here, right, so Pathfinder is gold up here, but it's black down here. So that automatically gets confusing because you're using 2 different color schemes. And then there's some other... This section I also thought was really interesting. This was... I feel like stuff that I would have read in a World of Darkness book, but how to make it spookier. And I thought one was like send out an invitations, at hammerdog.com, the website of the creators. They have actual invitations to send out to invite your players to play in the game. I feel like that's a really great idea in theory in my mind, but at the same time, it's at least maybe better for younger gamers. But as an adult with jobs and things, you can't really like send an invitation in the mail or an evite to people and like hope they show up. You have to plan this all out ahead of time. I guess then you could send the invite, but at the same time, I feel like it loses something if you were just like in high school and you send an invite to your friends to be like my house Friday night, and then like people could just show up. Whereas like now it's like, well, I have soccer practice or whatever else. It's harder to get to that, but nonetheless, still a cool concept. And then there's like play in a spooky location, and I do think it's kind of funny that it's like play in an old house or a cluttered attic. What was the other one here? A game store or library after hours could be just as spooky as a rundown house. I'm not going to recommend you go out and find a rundown house to play your games in, because that just seems like a bad idea. But I like the concept of it. Playing outside at a campground with only a fire and a kerosene lamp. I don't know if you've ever tried to play an RPG by a firelight. It can work, but it can be difficult. So I love the idea of this. And here's also something that's harder for me, because 9 times out of 10 now when I play games of Dungeons and Dragons or other RPGs, I stream them, because that's kind of the space that I find myself in. It's very rare. It happens occasionally, sure, but it's very rare I find myself playing a Dungeons and Dragons game either as a player or as a DM where it's not on stream or it's not recorded. So most of these things don't work for me. I need to be near some sort of internet connection, a recording device. I can't play at night in the dark because it's bad for, recording purposes. But I also it's like, hey, well, it's also Halloween time now. So go out and get a fog machine or a black light or some spider webs from the dollar store or whatever. Put them up to make the setting spooky. Put sheets over your furniture. Wear costumes and use props. Dim the lights. Again, it's things that I can't do for what I do, but you guys could. Again, here's one of the invites, right? Use music to enhance the mood. And this was something I thought was really cool. If you go back to here, when you go to download it, or when you download it, one of the things that you can get, I think this is it comes with a music track, which how cool is that? So let me go ahead and play that for you guys right now. I think I have it set up so that you guys will be able to hear it, but let's just double check. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and speed it up a little bit. See, we got kind of like some spooky, music going on here. It's alright, let's get a little darker. So I got some more spooky town music. We got some more like upbeat music. Go back to spooky. You can get the idea, right, as I go through this. So again, I don't need to go through the entirety of it, but it's a free music track, and it's a 16-minute track too. So that's pretty cool. Didn't have to do that, and I do appreciate that. And then this is a good advice for anybody, regardless of the game you're playing. Horror games work when you build tension. If you've ever watched a horror movie or a scary movie, you don't typically see the monster right out the gate. It's a slow build up, and that builds the tension. And again, this is something I think that works even better when you're doing this in person and not online and not for streaming. You can really work to that. You can take your time. You can build things up. You can dim the lights. You can get that all going. And then, you can do the jump scare stuff, but you really can make it psychological. This I really like to leverage your players' fears, right? If you know your players are afraid of spiders or the dark or whatever the case may be, if you happen to find a way to do this before the adventure, or you know it because you know them, work this into the campaign. Use terrain and minis. I mean, I also feel like that's great, and I love using terrain and minis, and it's cool to they show some cool options here. But I also think in that instance, terrain and minis can take you out of the immersiveness. Obviously, if you're going to do theater of the mind and do that like it recommends, it says here, um, you need to be on point with this because you're trying to build tension and make it scary. And if you're fumbling over describing things, it's going to just be, difficult to keep that mood. But I also feel when people are moving minis around on a board, it loses some of the tension of it being so spooky. I could be wrong, but that's just my gut feeling. All right, so let's skip ahead here a little bit. So here is the Dread Wedding. Long story short, I guess spoiler alert, by the way. Long story short, I didn't read the Cthulhu version as well, so there is a separate version of it set in like Spain and then eventually like Pennsylvania. But the medieval version of it is these people were going to have a wedding in this local town, and people were waiting for the bells to ring, and the bells never rang, and people went to check out the house and bust down the door, and everybody inside was dead. Some in their beds, some dressed up for the wedding. There's blood everywhere. People heard screaming. It was heralded by some sort of really spooky storm, which is called a dread storm. And then basically that's kind of it. No one's lived there since. It's a spooky haunted house. The adventure takes place there. Here you can see if you're playing this in like a Cthulhu timeline. Here it starts in 1412, and it gives you the entire timeline all the way up through 2017 or 2117 if you go way into the future for the future stuff. So again, here we go. Here's the Dread Wedding. This is the main setting. Beyond the Veil is the Cthulhu setting. And then this is here's the what's it called? It shows you the different adventures for the kind of D&D Pathfinder setting. How long it is. So it's saying that the Dread Wedding is for level 6 to 8 and it's a long duration. And it says it could be its own one-shot or it could be part of the 3-day campaign. And when I say the 3-day campaign, they do have stuff written to play it through the courses of 3 days in-game or the multi-year Scions of Solaria campaign. And then here are the other adventures and just gives you a breakdown of the levels and the duration. I'm curious what the difference between short and micro is. I don't actually believe that's explained anywhere, what the difference in the timeline is. So that may be something to try to find. And then here you can see one of those is the Fall of the House of Tashmir is for levels 9 to 11. And this is basically a dungeon crawl. So you've got that as well. That was one of the standalone adventures. So there's potentially content here to get you almost all the way up to level 11 from level 1. So that's pretty sweet. Then we can skip past all the Cthulhu stuff. So here's the 3-day campaign that tells you what happens on day 1, day 2, and day 3. And then if you do the multi-year, here it is, right? So it says you start off at around 10, and here's what happens over 5 years, right? So you're going to go from basically age 10 to age 15 and play these different adventures right here to get yourself all the way up. Information to describe the Dread Storm. Here's what happens if you're doing the Dread Wedding. Different times of the day mean different things. There's also something called the Hell Shift, which happens at midnight, which causes a bunch of different things to happen. That witching hour kind of thing, damage is increased, more undead summoned, etc. We've got a map here to show Espa, which is where it takes place if you're in the medieval times. Information on the town itself, NPCs, where the different locations are. Skip ahead. We've got images and art for them. Box text. Now we're into the Call of Cthulhu thing. Oh, another thing. This is just a pet peeve of mine for any PDF, folks. Let me just tell you something real simple. If you're gonna make digital content in some form for RPGs, we need bookmarks. Okay, so if there's no attachments, I can go here and I can look at the page numbers, but you can set up the bookmarks, like the table of contents, where I can go here, say like I can't even do that here, I can just print it, or I could click and you could go to like chapter 1, especially this one when you have everything broken down into different game settings. Like if I wanted to jump to the Call of Cthulhu setting here on page 41, I should have a quick bookmark that I can click and it'll take me right here, which is something a lot of other PDFs have, so it seems like a no-brainer. All right, now we're just gonna skip ahead a little bit. Again, now we're into the house itself. Here you can see the nice maps showcasing the house. Different people in the house, different rooms in the house. There's some puzzles and things contained. I'm just trying to get through this because, again, there's so much. And if I could click on little links, I would to skip us ahead. But instead, I have to just kind of click through it. Where is I looking? Oh, that's page 247. We got a long way to go before we get there. So we're still going. Wine cellar. We're still in the fantasy section here. There's a battle. Okay. So now we have the Pumpkin Man is sort of one of the villains. So here's his Pathfinder stats. Here's his 5th edition stats, and here's his Call of Cthulhu stats. I don't like how... Okay, so this is just a simple formatting thing. 5th edition does blocks, the stat blocks. They also break out legendary actions as their own block. You should do that here too, just to mimic it, rather than just tacking legendary actions at the end. Because this, to me, just looks like another action that he could take, and I could very easily miss that this guy has legendary actions, which is part of a thing that makes villains so dangerous in 5th edition. I don't think there's anything else that really jumps out at me on this particular one. Oh, he has these different abilities where it says dread abilities. This is kind of something contained later in the end. The dread abilities here: bound, dread, scared, dread, fear. But part of my problem, not a problem per se, is there's so many new mechanics that they've added, and I feel like having read through it, you don't really get the benefit. So now we are in, this is the Scions of Solaire. So I do want to click through this to show you some cool things, kind of the synopsises of the different things. But these new mechanics, like sanity and soul points and soul damage, I do think the adventure will truly shine if you use those, because I think it can make things more interesting. That being said, I feel like that means you're going to want to try to play this with more seasoned players, because there's a lot to go over and a lot to keep track of in this adventure, as you could tell anyway. But if you're going to tack on 2 to 3 new mechanics that aren't described in the main book or any of the books for Dungeons & Dragons except for this, it may be a little harder for brand new players to do, but it may prove to be an interesting challenge for veteran players. So something I would just keep in the back of your mind. So let's go ahead and scroll through. So we have the Dark Garden. Takes place in the garden. Classic horror. They're facing basically a giant plant monster. Then we have Queen of Cats. Group needs a ghost cat. Cat gives him a quest. That happens. That's cool. We have the Harrowing Hunter. This is sort of like a slasher kind of thing where they're stalked by a ghost. We have the Sweep and the Raven. They meet a ghost of a female chimney sweep. She's on a magical adventure. Sends them on a rooftop adventure. That's cool. We have this one where they meet a ghost dog who helps them out. The Dread Butcher. The butcher is possessed by a powerful ghost. They attempt to drive the ghost out of him without killing him, which is cool. This one is a ride through hell on a carriage, which is awesome. And then we have the Fall of the House of Tajmir. This is the longer dungeon crawl where you're basically going to try and take everything out, which is super cool. Oh, and here's the other standalone, the Sinister Spectre of Pepper Marsh. This is sort of a standalone spooky side adventure haunted house as well. I think that's basically it. Then it's going to get into the Call of Cthulhu stuff, so we're going to skip ahead. How far does this take us? Still Call of Cthulhu. Okay. Now, appendices. So, we have some fear rules here. They added levels of fear. So not like, but like, look at the amount of text here. There's 7 different levels of fear that you may want to tack onto your existing stuff. Then there's sanity and sanity points and sanity checks and sanity damage and spells that impact your sanity. Then there's also souls and soul damage and certain races get benefits to their soul points and their soul pools and items that do that. And it's just like, it all is very cool, but it's just a lot to take in on top of everything else. And I feel like it does truly shine if you use them, but it's just something to take into consideration. And then it says Ghost Touch, which is a Pathfinder thing. They're referencing it here. Allows you to attack things in the ethereal plane, which is not really a thing that they reference too much in 5th edition. Then we have our Dread Ghosts themselves and how to build them, what they look like, how to generate the conditions. But they have whole new condition sections. And I read through this and I was like, this is really cool. And I kept going, and then I realized that this all here was all Pathfinder. So we skip past all that. Then we have them for 5th edition. But like I said, Dread Sigil, a number of times per day equal to 1/3 a Dread Ghost's mark. The ghost can take an action to create an ectoplasmic symbol that if has the effects of the symbol spell. The save DC is based on the Dread Ghost's mark, minimum mark 4, which they have this mark system as well with marks 1 through 10. It's just adding, I feel, complexity, and I don't know if it's necessary in a lot of cases. And I feel like, again, we are doing a lot of this because we're trying to write an adventure that covers 3 different systems. 2 are relatively similar, and 1 is relatively different, quite different, being Call of Cthulhu. But here are some stats for ghosts of different mark levels, which I feel like mark could have been challenge rating. You know what I mean? I don't know. Call of Cthulhu, we can skip past most of this stuff. Then we're going to get into new hazards and new spells and magic items for Pathfinder. And then we have, again, new hazards and spells for 5th edition and new magic items for 5th edition as well. I looked through most of the items. A lot of them were relatively similar to existing items. Nothing too crazy. I did like the Karmic Chains, which were... see also here, like it says a wondrous item, but it's actually armor, not a wondrous item. So it's chain. It also says mithril chain. I assume that means chain mail, not chain shirt. But it's cool because you can take one of the rings out and throw the ring at a ghost and like trap them, which I thought was pretty neat. I like the idea of that. So here, the Gorax. It detects undead as per the Detect Undead spell. There is no Detect Undead spell in 5th edition. There's Detect Good and Evil, which works, I think, on undead. And a Paladin's Divine Sensibility. But, like, something simple. Again, it's not a huge... this also says Rod of Abundant Life. Create food and water, cure serious wounds. Cure serious wounds isn't a thing in 5th edition. It also says once per day the wielder can cast Breath of Life. Breath of Life isn't a spell in 5th edition, and it isn't one of the new spells they added, which is Bond with Ghost, Revive Spirit, and Soul Bond. So again, simple stuff, but things they just... oversights. Now, maybe Breath of Life is supposed to be Revivify. Maybe it's Raise Dead. Maybe it's a healing spell. Is Cure Serious Wounds... what is that? Cure Wounds at 3rd level? I don't know. It's just saying, like... stuff like that, I feel like, and I've seen this before in other modules and adventures written that cover both Pathfinder and 5th edition. They'll focus so much on the Pathfinder stuff, I feel like. Not necessarily always, but they'll constantly reference things like this, spells that don't exist in 5th edition. And they just kind of get lost by the wayside. All right, then we have our Cthulhu stuff. A little bit on Solaria, the god of the town that I mentioned. And then we have a little bit of summary of the effects. Right here's midnight. There's the hell shift and what happens with the hell shift when it happens. Some map stuff, a little bit of kind of promotional stuff about other things contained from Hammerdog Games, and then the back cover of the book. So I've been talking for almost a half an hour about this, and as you saw, I went very, very high level and didn't dive too much into this. There's just a lot to cover. So what do I think about this? I think it's pretty awesome. I do like a lot of it. I personally, because I don't play Pathfinder and I don't play Call of Cthulhu, that has no interest to me. I'm not saying that I won't play one in the future or something like that, but and I realize that's way harder to do. But if I was going to do it and I wanted to sell more copies of it, I would have parsed it out and made 3 different versions. I would have made a Pathfinder version, I would have made a 5th edition version, and I would have made a Call of Cthulhu version, rather than one compendium document that now me as a 5th edition player needs to sift through all 3 different versions of it to find the stuff that I want. Maybe I'm off base and you guys think that it's fine, and I would love to hear what you think about it in the comments below. But that's how I would do it. I would split it up into 3 different versions. The content's all there, right? You know, everything you need is there. You just got to parse it out as you need, or maybe shift or duplicate some stat blocks in some cases. But for the most part, you should be able to do that. And then obviously tighten up the couple things that I said, like where you're, you know, referencing spells in a system that doesn't have those spells. I love the idea of the Scions, the multi-year campaign, which again is not necessarily multi-years in real life, though it could be. Where you start off as like the young adventurers or the young kids in the town, the Stranger Things group, the Goonies, whatever you want to be, those 10-year-old kids that dare each other to go into the house for one reason or another. And then you start on this adventure path, and over the years, you eventually lead up to the point where you're strong enough and old enough to take on the Dread Wedding, the main campaign. And then if you finish that, then you could do the Fall of the House of Tashmere and do the dungeon crawl too. That I really like. I think that would be really fun to play. Standalone stuff would probably be good too. And as I said, you could run that as its own campaign, but there's no reason you couldn't drop this town or just the idea of the Dread House itself into your already existing campaign and just use it in that way. Or use some of the standalone adventures as a standalone adventure, maybe something you find on a job board, that kind of thing in your existing campaign. No reason you couldn't do that. The idea of, I'd have to dive further into the new fear and sanity and soul points and all that stuff. It seems cool, but like I said, it's just one more thing to track, and as I know from playing with tons of players, it's hard enough for them to be able to track just the resources that they have, let alone adding 2 to 3 new whole resource tracking mechanics for them to keep an eye on. They may lose sight of it, you may forget about it because it's not something you've been dealing with for so long. Just other stuff to think about. Again, I appreciate Hammer Dog Games going out of their way to design new mechanics to make the game more fun. And I do feel like, honestly, you probably will get the best experience out of this if you utilize both of those systems, because they designed the systems for a reason. Do I think it's worth $20? Again, it's worth $20 because you're getting 3 systems worth of material. I would parse it out and I would cut the price down a little bit, and that's how I would do it in my mind. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Would you pick up a copy of this? Do you already own it? What are your thoughts of a campaign or a module that includes 3 different systems? Do you like the fact that you pay one price and get 3 systems worth of material? Or are you more like me and you're probably only going to play one of them, so the other 2 pieces are just kind of pointless to you, and you're just going to sift through them to get to the stuff that you want? What do you guys think of the idea of the haunted house setting as a campaign and the idea of running as young kids all the way up? I do think that that's pretty popular with shows like Stranger Things, or people who do remember things like Monster Squad or The Goonies, or all of those kind of 80s style movies where like the group of kids where everybody's sort of the stereotypical, they have the different kinds of kind of mismatched misfits group who goes on a great adventure. Again, I really enjoy that because I'm a child of the 80s, so that's right up my alley, but I'm curious what you guys think. So if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this in the future. We do all sorts of different things here, from reviews like this to unboxings to coverage at conventions, my thoughts on things that need to get fixed for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons top 10 videos, and more. If you want to see me doing stuff live and interact with me as it's happening, I do stream on Twitch every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and my friend Celeste runs a game on the show on the channel every other Sunday. So if that sounds interesting, there's a link in the description to the Twitch channel as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.